What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
The Handmaiden, directed by Chan-wook Park, 2016. Finally got around to watching it. I am a fan of Chan-wook Park's movies. He did Old Boy, the original Old Boy, which is a crazy, just an insane story, super dark. Like if you watched Climax, which I talked about on an episode a few weeks ago, a French film by Gaspar Noé, very dark film as well. Climax, just crazy things happen. This Chan-wook's films are kind of similar to that, very dark as far as subject matter. Like nothing is out of bounds as far as what happens. It goes places that, especially in the political climate today, cultural climate today, of just like trying to vanillify everything and everyone. Like, I get, be nice, all that stuff, but we need to allow, especially in art, the ability to express anything. But Old Boy, don't watch the remake. The remake is dog shit. But watch the original Old Boy. It's like Climax, but it has a lot more meat to it, a lot more to sink your teeth into. Chan-wook Park is a Korean director. So there's like thriller horror almost, but like realistic horror, not like supernatural horror necessarily, although he has done some kind of movies that touch on supernatural. The Handmaiden is told in a way in multiple parts. It shows the story from different perspectives, so similar to kind of if you watched the El Royale, Battle at El Royale, what is that movie called? Bad Times at the El Royale. Bam. Where that one's much more of an interwoven. You get to see from different perspectives. So similarities between that and this. This is much more of a dark movie, but this takes place in the past. It is a handmaiden is hired for a Japanese heiress. She's married to a very rich man. So there's a plot with the handmaiden and a male character to basically defraud this Japanese heiress. And the thing is for her to go in and seduce her, and the heiress, because she's been locked away, is super naive. So you get to see from the handmaiden's perspective, kind of her version of reality. Her version of reality. And then it cuts to another part where you're seeing it from the heiress's version of reality, and seeing the drastic difference of the first perspective. It's almost she's of course the hero of her own story, and she's like the most epic as far as deception. But from the outside, for somebody who may seem to be naive but actually has extreme experience and knowledge, especially there's very kind of erotic female on female kind of moments, right? Almost kind of like The Favorite in a way, but it'd be like people trying to, like almost like a spy thriller where people double and triple cross. This movie's very much like that. It's so good. It took me. I bought the movie on iTunes when I was in Denver. Plan on watching it because I'm a fan of Chan-wook Park stuff. Finally got around to watching it, and now I want to go back and rewatch Old Boy. Of course, I want to rewatch just the whole Vengeance trilogy, which Old Boy is a part of, which is just a crazy movies that are related tonally. Thematically are related, not necessarily story-wise. They're not necessarily like a trilogy of movies as like the Star Wars movies are, but they are all movies that are done by the same director, kind of focusing on a different aspect of vengeance. And Old Boy is one of those three movies. I look forward to hopefully me talking about those movies as well. I noticed after watching this that it's very hard to find Chan-wook Park's movies. They're not available on iTunes for some reason. Maybe they were just off temporarily, but I'm looking forward to getting into those again and talking about those. But this movie's just great. It's just I mean, just really well written. When it changed up, when it went from the first part of The Handmaiden, it was like, okay, this is good, this is interesting. Like they're gonna, get this money from her, and it's gonna be an interesting kind of a thing. But then it almost turns into like a Usual Suspects, where like what you think is happening the whole time, you're still like, even towards the end, you're like, you can't know what is actually unfolding. You're just, because you as the viewer have an ignorance to, even though you think you know, you don't know. It's very similar to the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you're going into this movie and you without any experience of this movie, no experience of the story, your confidence in knowing what's going to happen is sky high. And then it switches to the second part and you're like, oh shit. Like once you start seeing it from the other person's perspective, you're like, oh no, she is not good. It's very similar to just people in real life. I know some very, geographically in a very tight, very close proximity to myself, who literally lives in their own delusion, thinking that they are the greatest person and thinking that everything they do is, everything they touch is gold, and, everybody else is just, meanwhile, they're like a pathological liar. They have no, they take no responsibility for any of the things that, like, their life is just crumbling around them, but they don't understand because they're such a perfect person. Meanwhile, if they actually just, stepped away from their ego for a bit and actually saw it from the perspective of others, they would see that they're really the cause of the destruction of their world, and they're making life harder for every single person around them. But they're so stuck in their delusion that they just won't bring it upon themselves to, just be honest, brutal honest with what you're doing with your life. And that's not necessarily what the Handmaiden is doing. She just thinks she's way better at something than she really is. And it is almost a comedic thing, because she is trying to seduce her, and then meanwhile the heiress, one of her jobs is to read like dirty literature, like penthouse letters or whatever, to rich men. So it's just like back in like ancient Japan or Korea, not ancient, but writing. This before radio, before like the only entertainment, the live entertainment for porn. It's like a porn theater, except for you have an attractive woman sitting on stage reading these stories from scrolls, these super explicit, detailed stories of sex acts, and just all kinds of different sex acts. Basically, like if you were to open up Pornhub or any porn site and you see like all the different categories that are available, like there is a depth to it. It's not just all, it's not just like, it's far more real than like the 50 Shades bullshit. Not that I've read those books or watched those movies, but it seems to me like those are the very Disney-fied, in a way, version of S&M, and kind of different kind of avenues you can get into in a sexual way that aren't necessarily your standard, doggy-style missionary kind of a thing. But anyway, it's crazy. Watch The Handmaiden. Watch all of Chan-wook Park's movies. And watch more episodes of this show. They come out daily. Subscribe on IGTV and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. InspiredDisorder.com for all of my original artwork. At Ray Taylor for me on all social media. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out.